Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain. And I have an amazing guest today, and I'll tell you why. I collaborated with this man back in 2018, 17, and 18 during the ICO days. We're both holdovers from crypto of long ago. I'm looking forward to speaking with him today. I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, I hope. Mamadou Kwidjim Toure. Mamadou, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and reconnect with you on the show. So so much has happened over the years, and I'm glad to see you tall and strong, and having kind of gone all through the waves with the valleys of death, etc., in the industry, and here you are, strong and radiant. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know about tall. I'm 5'6". I don't know about tall, but everything else is good. Thank you.
You're tall in spirit.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Let's kick things off, and let me ask you first. What is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now, and how the last 8 years have been for you? So.
Yeah, my background, I'm from investment banking. Started my career with KPMG in Paris in France, then joined BNP Paribas investment banking arm, BNP Paribas Fortis, mostly focused on mergers and acquisitions, project finance, government advisory, before joining IFC World Bank, where I was in charge of investment in telecom, media, technologies for Sub-Saharan Africa. Spending my time mostly between Washington and the rest of the continent. I made the first investment in the world at the time in mobile money, mobile banking, even before M-Pesa, as I could see that that was the way the world was going, to leapfrog, right? I've always been big on looking at technologies that help leapfrog. And after those years, 8 years with IFC World Bank, I joined GE as managing director in charge of investment and project finance for the group. So spending a lot of time between New York and the continent, covering 48 countries across the industries: power, water, mining, oil and gas, transportation, healthcare. Where we had a chance to grow the portfolio from 5B to at least a pipeline of projects to 23B. And in parallel, I was always having, started my first NGO. I was 19. While I was at the World Bank, I was very frustrated with the system. So I decided to start my own organization called Africa 2.0 that gathered young leaders from Africa and the diaspora to come up with a vision from Africa. We were like, we had the support of great people like Nelson Mandela, Graça Machel, and a few other states. And the idea for me when I wanted to leave the corporate world, because I was kind of living this double life, investment banker during the day and social activist, if I may, right? Moonlighting. And the idea was, can't we find a way to kind of do business that will let you do good and do well at the same time? And that's why I discovered also Bitcoin. And those were the very early days, the ICO days. I think those are the time where we met. And for me, it was very much of a revolution, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute. Are we moving away from the old boys club, and are we getting into decentralized finance where everybody really is going to have a chance? Are we really talking about this great opportunity for wealth transfer, where technology supersedes personal contacts and favors and bypass the central institutions that could be biased or inefficient sometimes. So I saw this as a revolution. I dropped everything. I think that's where we met. I was very, in my early days, super enthusiastic. We started maybe with a community coin as an idea, and then it evolved, into looking at what is that Africa has best to offer, right? In a context where most of my friends, entrepreneurs, CEOs would work very hard, but their currencies would depreciate. I even had friends in Argentina, in all those countries where no matter how hard they work, their wealth would be divided by 5 at the end of the year, right? And in a context where there's so much mineral resources and so much gold being exported, and gold in parallel would have gained, I think, between 2000 and 2017, 18, probably 600%, right, or 500%, and now 1,000%, right? So why don't we leverage to our strength? And the point was, okay, let's democratize access to gold, right? So that anyone could buy gold from as low as 10 cents or up to from $1 and use the power of blockchain technology to do that. And that's really how the journey began. Little did I know how complicated and how hard and how challenging the journey would be. But I don't regret a single second having embarked on this, because for me, it's an opportunity of a lifetime for a generation to make new rules towards shared prosperity and leveraging on technology for that. And since I'm big on leapfrogging, that's since internet, there hasn't been any better opportunity for people to leapfrog, right? Now you've had the highway of information with internet. The problem is that money never had a highway; it had a one-way, and and it was a one-way, tiny little passage, And now, okay, let's make it a highway, multi-directional, where effectively capital and asset can flow freely without the bottleneck of a middleman that decides who gets what. In a nutshell, that would be my background and how I got to this.
Yeah. And if you didn't have the right credentials, you thought you were going down the road. That road was a dirt road. But, now
Yeah, sometimes,
now it's a paved road. So,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, I did attend the World Bank conferences last October. I did go to the a summit on Africa on electricity in sub-Saharan Africa, and I don't know if you were there. I was in the room. There were five foreign ministers speaking in front of the group, and I was right in the middle of the room, and I did not get I didn't realize they were all going to speak in French. So,
oh, sorry.
I sat in the room for 2 hours in the middle. I had no headphones. Like, why would I need headphones? I didn't understand a single word. So,
Yeah.
but I do digress. I want to find out what the Ubuntu Tribe is all about. Including your purpose, your vision, your mission, and all that.
No, I mean, your anecdote is actually pretty interesting, right? It really showed, I mean, you're kind of making reference to language, right? And sometimes language can be a prison, right? And there's so many elements besides language that and I'll link it to Ubuntu Tribe and you'll understand, that have kind of ring-fenced people to either a status or a geography or the prison of their own currency, right? And you were talking about the francophone, etc. They have this CFA franc that basically any international transfer had to go to the French Treasury, right? So it's not, your point you're referring to is actually very, very timely. And I think what the point we had was, wait a minute, if everyone has the currency and actually only three were kind of globally recognized, euro, pounds, and dollars, and maybe the Japanese yen to a certain extent, and everything else was pointless or didn't really matter, right? But we came to one conclusion, is that there is one thing, one very thing that has always had value, regardless of civilization, regardless of geographies, across human history. It's gold. And it has been the backbone of the financial system. And every time of crisis, everybody go back to gold. So I don't, and another very interesting story is that even the elite troops of the top military groups in the world of whichever country, in your survival kit, most of them would have an ounce of gold in their survival kit. And you know why? Because no matter where you go, even if you're in the end of the Congo Basin or the Amazon forest, that ounce of gold will bring you home, right? So we said, okay, let's tokenize gold because at the end of the day, it's universal. There's no borders, there's no limitations. Everybody understands what it is. People have gold rings, earrings, chains, you name it, right? And if that's one thing, if it can be tokenized, wherever it goes on the planet, people will value it. The only problem was actually that people don't have access, right? At best, they can get jewelry. At worst, it gets exported and they've been given paper that keeps on losing value over time while the gold has left the shores and keeps appreciating over time. So that's why we said, okay, let's tokenize gold, but let's make it available at the lowest denomination for anyone to have a chance to participate as long as they have a mobile phone. Because by the moment you do that, you eliminate borders. You may not want CFA francs or Argentinian peso to be paid to you, but if somebody said, look, I'm going to send you gold, you'll think twice, right? It's not a currency, it's not a stable coin, let's call it, it's a gold-backed token, right? And in that sense, how do we create a unified environment where everybody has a chance to play within an asset that has never disappointed over the past centuries? That's how we came to this, right? And in a context where, if you look at Africa, I think 47, 46% of the global gold deposit actually it sits there on the continent. So what about tokenizing it, right? Even if it gets exported, what we have today, we have gold bullion in Zurich, Stuttgart, Copenhagen. We partnered also with the MCC in Dubai and Singapore Global Metal Exchange, so that your gold is sitting safe, and wherever you are in the world, you can buy a digital certificate of gold ownership at the minimal fractional value of $1, even less. The gold doesn't move, but the ownership gets transferred and the value gets shared. That's really the rationale for which we got into launching Gift Gold, which is our gold-backed token by Ubuntu Tribe.
Great. So you launched Gift Gold. What I know what it is, makes sense. What does it enable that currently isn't enabled today?
Think of this. Basic stuff, right? Take a case, you have a huge health problem, right? There is no doctor competent, let's say, for that specific heart disease or whatever, right? Let's think of a basic stuff like telemedicine, right? Now, you could access any doctor in the world by offering a gold-backed token, and they can save your life, right? Let's think of access to education. Let's think of remittance. Why send paper back home when you can send gold that is programmable, that sits on your wallet, that keeps appreciating while you only take what you need, while the rest grows? Think of financial inclusion, right? Everybody's been talking about financial inclusion for the past 30 years, right? This is like the big narrative. But what does it really mean, financial inclusion? Is to give you a bank account? And then what? So if you don't have an asset, the bank won't lend to you, right? They lend based on collateral. And when they lend, they're going to charge you because you don't have any credit history, because you just got included. So they're going to charge you the highest possible interest rate. And financial inclusion turns into debt trap or poverty trap. And let's remember, finance is based on two key things: asymmetry of information and collateral. If you have an asset like a gold-backed token, the bank won't think twice. And I use DeFi. I don't need your credit history. I lock your asset, and you can borrow on the back of it to fund your small business, to expand. And guess what? This year alone, gold gained 40%, right? Over the past year, it gained 120%. So you could repay your debt twice without even needing the cash flow, right? And without having to produce historical data that you may not have. Think of students, think of farmers, think of blue collars who struggle. Well, even in the US, people forget that at least 15% of the US population is unbanked or underbanked, right? But they all have a phone. And many of those are maybe immigrants or lower bracket of the population. But from a phone, they can purchase gold. And you don't have to explain to them like you would need to explain Bitcoin, although Bitcoin has its own value, of course.
That was my next follow-up question for you. And it's simple. If I walk into a bank with a bar of gold, they will lend me money. If I walk into the bank with my Bitcoin wallet, they will not lend me money. Why?
Yes, correct.
So how can we get the banks to understand? Like, there's no difference. They're both both assets. How do you get them to lend you money if you're a Bitcoin holder?
We waiting for the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, right? Banks follow the leaders. Look at JP Morgan now, who's been for years, laughing at Bitcoin, and now is rushing towards Ethereum and Bitcoin. Why? Because it has become sexy, and because the US administration has realized that if they want to absorb the massive deficit, they're going to have to build different type of strategic reserves, right? And Bitcoin happened to be one of them, and they also need to kind of have those stable coins in place. And they gave the freedom to the likes of Amazon and banks to issue their own stable coins. Suddenly, watch this space. They're definitely gonna want, and you look at BlackRock, right? They started with Bitcoin ETF. So it's just a matter of time. I love this quote from Gandhi that says, first, they laugh at you. Then they ignore you. Then they fight you. And then you win. And that's really what's happening now, right? And it has become a game of, if you can't beat them, join them. And that was the power of Bitcoin, this hyper decentralization, something you can't catch. And we all owe what we're doing today to Satoshi Nakamoto, in that sense, right? And I certainly see the rise because it will also become an asset of last resort in the context of the collapsing dollar, traditional capital markets ailing and battling, and it's kind of being more and more visible, where people would need to look at safe place to deploy their capital and balance their portfolio. Did you know that central banks basically, out of a global production of gold of 3,000 something tons, central banks last year bought like more than 1,000. So they know something we don't know, right? BlackRock launching Bitcoin ETF knows something we don't know. But we happen to not be as stupid as we look.
I'd like to think I'm not as stupid as I look.
I mean, we pretend for sure, but definitely we're not, and especially not you.
Well, thank you. So I want to go back to something you said earlier. You posed a question, and I actually want to pose it back to you. You said, what does Africa best have to offer besides gold in this Web3 space? What does Africa best have to offer that we should be collaborating with or partnering with to make things happen?
Okay, let's do the math. What people don't realize is that in 20 years, 7 kids born on the planet out of 10 will be Africans. In 15 years, we're going to be 2 billion people. and the youngest, of course, while at the same time, 7 out of 10 European will be above 65. So the demographics alone speaks for itself. Now, what people don't realize also is that Africa is 60% of the global arable land. So it means that once you bring technology and you have the human resources, and then you can leapfrog, then you start having something that is very unheard of. Now, let's talk about natural resources. You know, those conflicts that people see on the continent is not because Africans like to fight. It's because there is a prize there that is generally the resources, right? 70% of the platinum, 45% of the global gold deposit, 35% of the lithium. That's not nothing, including the rare earth, right? And all those things that serve for military. So the reason why Amazon is investing massively, and same for Elon Musk and Tesla, especially in the resources space, is because they know they're going to need it. Now, something people don't even realize, AI. We talk about AI, right? And we say, oh, the big thing about AI is going to be energy. Yes, it will. But what people don't realize is that to build all those data centers, the cost, the expenses in your total expense for those data centers will go for 6% into copper. So where is this copper going to come from? And now think of our model, which is tokenizing natural resources and commodities and making sure that, contrarily to what happened over the past decades, whether it's in Latin America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and so on, we fractionalize ownership so that there's a true shared prosperity as we enter this commodity super cycle, right? Now with AI, are you going to need to build schools? I don't think so, right? What you need is good connectivity and good electricity, right? But now you have very smart things. You have, Elon Musk, Starlink. You have, everyone is now putting so that every inch of the planet is covered, right? Energy, we have sun, so solar, decentralized. You have a lot of this distributed power that would actually address the problem. And that's what people fail to understand, is that the ingredients are actually gathered for a leapfrog like people have never seen before. What was really missing was the capital to fuel it, or the monetization of those assets, of those resources in a way that become democratized, where global and local investors can participate and get a piece of the pie and grow. Because now we also, as Ubuntu, we tokenize assets in ground, the rights to those assets in ground for future extraction. We don't just do gold tokens sitting in bullion vault. We're very advanced on some of those key minerals because we know that's the name of the game.
I'm thinking here. You commoditize gold. Say you commoditize and fractionalize copper, access to diamonds, access to natural resources that the world needs. What now is possible for the average person, to do?
Because they can get a piece of the resources they've been sitting in for generations. It changes everything. Did you know that lithium, I think over the past 4 or 5 years, gained 600%? Do you realize what difference it makes into somebody's life to even own $100 of savings of lithium and having it worth $600 a few years back later? It changes everything, right? And gold alone, like I told you, if you had bought $100,000 of gold in 2000, you would be sitting on $1.3 million today. Point is, the media don't discuss that. The finance world don't talk too much about it. You know why? Because if everybody starts and buy gold, then it won't be as cheap as it used to be.
Or lithium or copper or anything like that.
Something like that, indeed.
Interesting. So I want to talk. You said people don't have access to banking. So I want to find out, gold tokenization and MiCA like regulations has been a regulation framework that has worked, in Europe and then some African countries too. But I want to find out under, compliance standards under MiCA, what
Yeah.
what operational protocols would be the template for asset tokenization globally because of it?
So we have good news for you. We fully regulated under MiCA, right? We're one of the only gold-backed tokens that can proudly say so, right? And it took us quite a while to get there because, as you know, as people say, America innovates, Europe regulates, right? Many tried but didn't get there. Some got delisted, etc. But it gives us that stamp of approval at global level that we've been verified that customers' interests are protected and that we are compliant and so on. And for us, it was very important, right? Because you've been there probably longer in this space longer than me, and you know how complex it was to deal with compliance because there's always been this gray area. And of course, you saw in the previous administration the witch hunt that in many cases was very arbitrary. So we didn't want to leave anything to chance. And we also believe that our customers deserve access to a product that has been checked, to processes that have been verified, and to a customer care approach that takes their interest and that protect them from any possible risk. And we did it. We as much of a rebel that we are, we also understand the value of regulation. You've seen so many rug pulls. You've seen so many scams, right? And for us and we didn't want to fall into that trap of pump and dump. And many like you and I got into this space because we believed in what the industry stands for. We believe in how blockchain can effectively change people's lives. And then there was a second wave of people who saw great opportunity to be rich fast and disappear, right? But some of us have stuck to, and that's why it took us so long, by the way. Because when you want to do things right, you can't take shortcuts, right? And of course, and we also build supply chains and all those things. But now here we are. We are fully regulated in Europe, soon in other regions, of course, across the continent. We also have a wallet that is full compliant with KYC and so on. And that for us was very important, right? Because ultimately we're here to stay. It takes time to build trust, right? And the same way that it takes time to build when you want your product to be trusted.
Yeah. So let's talk about those shortcuts. I agree with you. There are a lot of people who come in who over leverage their bets to try to get rich quick, right? They're missing a point, right?
Yeah.
They're in a big way. Like, so we're here for the adoption, for the long haul. How's it gonna? But a lot of people don't see that. How do you get more people to see that this is an opportunity to build for the long haul? And then by backing, your tokens with physical assets, how can they become part of the long haul and think in terms of long-term wealth instead of get rich quick?
It's a very good question. So our model, I'll tell you at least our story, right? 2-3 years ago, before Terra Luna and FTX, etc., everywhere we would go and say, "Oh yes, we have this gold-backed token," people would laugh at us and say, "Oh yeah, but we're looking for 100x, 50x, and you're coming with gold like 10% or 20% per year. I mean, come on, bro, stay home, right?" And I stuck the course because at the end of the day, think of this. How many of us were there in 2018, 2017, strong believers? Not many have lasted, right? And those who are here for a quick buck finally disappear, right? Unfortunately, they tarnish the image, right? And it's also about talking to the right audience, because it's so much easier to call upon greed than to offer hope, right? And the reality is, people also have to make their own experience. So we had to stay quiet on the side, understanding that the time will come for people to decipher. But it's also about talking to the right audience to whom it makes a difference, right? And I think there's been a lot of narrative that were not necessarily addressed to those who need it the most, right? And in our case, we make sure we also communicate, and it's a lot of education, right? Because you don't come with complex tokenomics and say, I'm going to burn my token so that the price goes 5x. You're not going to burn gold, sorry, right? But I think resilience, grit, and consistency for people to ultimately see that there is there is a difference, and there are people out there, and also I think what's also coming is that the early adopters were much more risk averse. They wouldn't mind losing everything because it was spare money, right? Those I won't call them the late adopters, but the mass adopters are more mom and pop who are more careful, right? And can't really bargain, the savings of the family. And that might be also the audience, which is the 95% at the end of the day. Think of this, right? Crypto today is 400 million wallets, 450 maybe, 500 if you're lucky, if you don't count the double counting, right? We're talking about 8 billion people. It means that 7.5 billion are yet to be onboarded. And that gives me hope, right? But it also shows that it has stagnated, adoption has stagnated because there was a failure in finding, one, the narrative, and second, the outreach to an audience who actually is the one who needed the most, who lives from paycheck to paycheck.
I'm going to have to go back to your World Bank hat on the next question.
Let me change it then. How about this one?
I like it. World Bank hat.
I mean, you got me at hello. I thought I had a second hand on my table. Let's play the game.
Awesome. So I have listeners in 128 countries. I don't have listeners in 205 countries. I would love to get the other 75 on board. But with the World Bank saying those 75, the people in the 75 countries, they still don't have access to banking or to anything. So for the people who lack this banking access, how do you think that your fractional ownership of the resources can help them to then gain the banking access? And how do we move that forward?
Okay, so once again, let's do the math, right? If you take, what people don't realize is that in the United States, you have 52% of the population who has access to the stock market. It literally means that 160 million Americans don't have access, okay? Europe is probably 45% or something like that. So, and if you count Japan, so basically OECD countries would be half, 50%. Africa, maybe stock markets, bonds, whatever, we talk about 5 to 10%. And other emerging markets, you're talking about 15%, right? So if you take all those people together, it's less than 1 billion people. It's 800 million people, roughly, right? Now, let me see. I think I have something here. Yeah, I have something. 5.6 billion people have a mobile phone. That's where the game is changed. And through that mobile phone, they can buy any digital assets. Even if it's not a smartphone, you can do it via USSD today, right? In our model, you have, payment partners, etc. That covers 170 countries, and where you can reach through your phone, even if you don't have a bank account. How beautiful is that? Suddenly, you have assets that appreciate over time, and that skyrocket, things you would never even have thought of. And soon we'll be tokenizing the shares of Tesla, Nvidia, fractionalizing it. And you can sit in the middle of the forest and get them on your phone. That's where the change is, right? And like I mentioned before, I've always been about leapfrogging, because there's no way you're going to catch up with others if you follow the same linear path, right? And technology is the biggest equalizer. And if you can have gold for $1, if you can have Satoshi for even less, or right? If you can get a lot of those that are priced outside of your local currency depending of a government that can perform or not perform, and that can ruin your economy overnight, you're protected. And that's really where we're heading. And that's why we've built a wallet that is also working low latency. That's why we're working on USSD solutions, so that we serve our vision to create equal access to opportunity, regardless to place of birth or wealth at birth.
I love it. I love the whole entire concept of leapfrogging. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. I enjoyed speaking with you. It's great to catch up after 7 years, 8 years. I have one last question. It's sort of simple. It's how can people find out more information about you, about Ubuntu Tribe, about your gift gold? Well, how can they do that?
So yeah, thank you so much. I mean, of course, you can find more information on Ubuntu Tribe on our website, utribe.one, utribe.one. And of course, follow us on social media, Ubuntu Tribe One or Ubuntu Tribe or uTribe, Telegram, X, Insta, LinkedIn, and so on. So please visit our website. There's so much to learn. We just released something that will we thought would really help people understand where the world is going and what gold is going to play. It's our Gold for All report. We launched it actually on 9 September this year on Times Square. It was a huge success. And we even had interviews of people on Wall Street and on Times Square. And it's very interesting to see how the world is reacting. It has had a lot of downloads. And our Give Gold is listed. You can find it on Bitmart, on CoinStore. We're also listed on CoinGecko, soon to be CoinMarketCap, and more exchanges will be onboarding. So we're very excited. We want to build this movement, and you're definitely part of it, and this community where we unlock people's potential by set them free financially so that they can move up the Maslow pyramid.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.